Hello and welcome to the Fifth Down Huddle. Before we get started here, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and check out the Instagram page and the Spotify page, both at Fifth Down Huddle. We just had a full podcast drop on Saturday. We post them weekly and are going to start posting fantasy podcasts every Wednesday. So, let's huddle up. Today we're going to be talking about how fans affect NFL games and how banning fan attendance for the Jets and the Giants, which is recent NFL news, which will also likely happen to the majority of the teams this season and stadiums, will affect things like home field advantage and the overall atmosphere of an NFL game. So, if you aren't already aware, recent news, the Jets and the Giants both play in the same stadium. Kind of makes sense, they're both from New York, and that stadium banned NFL fans from attending these upcoming NFL games this season. And now, considering that coronavirus cases are on the rise, especially in the U.S., at a higher rate than they have been ever since the virus began, it's very unlikely that that ban is going to be taken away anytime soon, and it is becoming more and more likely that that ban is going to be put in place to nearly every team in the NFL, every stadium that those teams play in. So, it's a fair question. Things like home field advantage and the atmosphere and how this ban will affect the players, not just the game we watch on TV. Granted, it's going to look a little weird. We've already seen that today with the NBA had their first games of the restart. And I'll be honest, it looked a little weird, sounded a little quiet. I think they had a few commentators on Zoom throughout the entire games. But overall, it's interesting. And I think one thing we need to look at for the NFL is how this is going to affect NFL players. So first things first, the atmosphere is not going to be anywhere near where it used to be. The difference, especially for the players, will come with it feeling like the stakes are lower than usual. Now, granted, it's still an NFL game, but I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Oftentimes, the difference in a player's mind that subconsciously switches on their game mode level of effort, per se, and kind of that high level of focus once the game comes around, laser focus, is the atmosphere of the field itself. Thousands upon thousands of fans shouting, cameras flashing everywhere, the hustle and bustle of a packed sports stadium. Now, though, the game won't subconsciously feel much different from a scrimmage or even a preseason game. Granted, you're still going to be going out there full pads, full uniforms. There's still going to be some spectators there. It's going to be game mode, but there's just that intangible idea of the fans being there. The noise, the feel, just the overall atmosphere, like I'm trying to say, that's just going to be completely different this season. I think this is going to have some big effects on the players. It'll cause players to have less urgency, and overall will cause some discomfort in the first few weeks of the season for players, although I do believe that much like pressure, anxiety, travel, and injuries, players are going to adapt to it. Players have adapted to things. They've adapted to a longer season. They've adapted to new playoff schedules, and honestly, I think they'll adapt to this too. And one interesting point that comes from this new atmosphere is the possibility that will actually help to have the silence. I mean, you look at players who have been known to choke or struggle under pressure, maybe even Lamar Jackson. Now, granted, Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily caused the Baltimore Ravens to lose a playoff game per se. I mean, granted, he didn't play top tier in either one of them, but he wasn't necessarily the reason they lost. It was kind of a team effort towards losing. But the point is that if in any way, I mean, I'm not sure of this, but we all know there's players in the NFL that struggle under pressure. And whether it's Lamar Jackson, whether it's Drew Brees, whether it's quarterbacks that struggle under pressure, or receivers that struggle under pressure, with the lights on them, the cameras on them, knowing it's a playoff game, maybe not having any fans will cause less choking to happen this season. Less interceptions, just blatantly bad throws on an overtime drive or a last-minute drive. So those players that struggle under pressure might have a better shot at having a breakthrough season over players who excel under pressure, as they may feel heavy discomfort. I mean, you look at Tom Brady. He seems to play his best when the limelight's on him. When the game's coming down to the line, when it's the end of the season, the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship, a divisional round game, When it's all on the line, it seems Brady really plays his best. Now, granted, this last game excluded where he threw a pick six on his last play with the Patriots, but outside of that, he has been known as the most clutch quarterback in the league. So it's an interesting thing because without the fans, is that going to cause Brady a bit of discomfort in those situations? Will that take away that kind of surreal feeling of this is it that Brady has seemingly fed on while other players have treated as a monster? So is Brady going to continue to feed off this, or will it not be there anymore? And again, it goes the other direction of where these players that do choke, these players that do struggle in these situations, is it going to be a monster to them any longer? Now, the psychological worries that come with this new unknown style of football seem to be the most impactful. But another impact that's less psychological and more literal in terms of, I guess it also plays into psychological, but more for us, more for the fans, the importance of home field advantage. In past seasons, home field advantage has primarily been about the fans rather than the field, and who the team is rooting for, who the fans are yelling for, who they're booing when that team's on the field, or who they're cheering when the other team's on the field. I mean, take it from Phillip Rivers. He was once asked how a lack of fans and a true home field advantage affected him and his teammates, and he stated, quote, "We definitely have gotten used to it. It's tough, but being someone that remembers what it used to be like in home games, it's pretty bad. It's disheartening," end quote. So clearly, for Phillip Rivers, for any player in the NFL, home field advantage has primarily been effective not just by the location of the field, but by the fans that attend. Now, granted, location of the field does still play in. I mean, the team doesn't have to travel. The team doesn't have to cross the country to get there. They can stay home. They have maybe an extra full day of practice. But having no fans takes away some of the importance of home field advantage. So, come the final few games of a fanless season, there could be a lower level of drama. Although, the new 7-team playoff bracket will likely fill in that empty void of competition and late-season action. Rather than having the Ravens and the Chiefs battle out home field advantage, we might end up seeing the Browns and the Steelers fight for the 7th seed in the playoffs. Thank you so much. This was just a quick take. Come back tomorrow for my next one. Thank you for watching.